Good morning, everyone. This is Mike Eilon with Fraternity Foodie. Welcome to episode number 27. And we call these episodes Fraternity Foodie because there is nothing like really good food to bring people together. I am so excited about today's episode. I have a special treat for you. Our special guest today is Kevin Pons. He is the executive director of NGLA, which is the Northeast Greek Leadership Association. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Hey, Mike, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hey, it's my pleasure. It's always good catching up. And we have a whole bunch of questions for you, so let's get right to it. I know that you chose Johnson & Wales University in Providence, Rhode Island for your undergraduate experience. So what made Johnson & Wales the right choice for you?
Yeah, so I knew very early on in high school that I wanted to go to college for marketing or business. And I think a lot of that I contribute to the marketing club called DECA that I was a member of. A lot of students from my high school went to Johnson & Wales specifically for marketing or business because we had a really thriving DECA program. So I visited the campus a couple times, particularly met with those members from who were attending Johnson & Wales to get that really behind the scenes tour. I loved Providence. I loved the campus. But I knew that the price tag of a private school education was going to be a little bit of a barrier for me. So I started doing a lot of research on different scholarship opportunities and financial aid. And I found this program called the National Outstanding Student Leader of the Year, which was actually a competition where they picked of all the 5 campuses of Johnson & Wales, they would pick the top finalists, top 10, to come to Providence to compete in what they deemed a scholarship competition, where you would participate in some case studies, present your resume professionally. And through that, much to my surprise and appreciation, I was awarded the top position through that scholarship program, making a 4-year full tuition scholarship available to me to Johnson & Wales. So the decision was very easy after that to head to Providence for the next 4 years and study marketing at Johnson & Wales.
That's incredible. See that? I mean, you just got to do your homework. You got to find out what's available out there and see how you can make something like that happen. And I think that's what's great about you is, you know exactly what your goal is and you just go after it and you get it. Even if it might be difficult or it might be a long road, you're just like, all right, let's just get it done. So I admire that about you. That's awesome.
Thanks, Mike.
And yeah, of course. And I know you were also very involved at Johnson & Wales as a student. You won multiple awards, including Student of the Year, Outstanding Greek Chapter President, Sigma Pi Fraternity Harold Jacobson Award winner. So obviously there had to be something special about your chapter of Sigma Pi at Johnson & Wales. What was so special about that chapter?
Well, I had a really unique opportunity to be the founding president of the restarted chapter. Eta Omega chapter had been around in Sigma Pi's history for a while, but for various reasons that we all know that happen on college campuses, the chapter was closed. I was currently in an interest group with about 20 other young men that were really trying to bring a different type of fraternity to Johnson & Wales campus. And through a lot of different conversations, we landed on moving forward with Sigma Pi. The executive office at the time was there in 2005, led a lot of the program with us. And what I think was so unique for us at that time was being that founding group of young men to establish Sigma Pi's Eta Omega chapter again. Having that energy, having that excitement really does amazing things, I think, for a chapter. But specifically for us, we were able to rally some of the best student leaders on campus, provide an experience that wasn't currently being offered. And from the day that we stepped foot on campus as Sigma Pi, we just really started dominating. We were winning Greek Week every week, having a lot of academic excellence within the chapter. I myself was also the student body president at the time. So it really created an awesome leadership experience, both for myself and for the brothers of my founding class.
Yeah. See, that's one thing I will never have the opportunity to do is to be a founding father. I joined an existing chapter. I certainly don't regret that. It was an amazing experience. But I hear stories like yours all the time from founding fathers all over the country. No matter what fraternity you're in, there seems to be something really special and unique about that experience that transforms these men into leaders. And I see it over and over again, just amazing leadership stories out of founding fathers and fraternities that they go on to just do amazing things. And then when you start probing, you find out they're a founding father of their chapter.
Yeah, the experience is unlike anything else because you literally get to build something from the ground up. Now, naturally, the fraternity has tons of pre-existing programs and initiatives that you can take part in, but establishing that is almost like building a business from scratch. And I think I look back at that experience and contribute a lot of my professional success to that experience because I see the college years as like a laboratory or an experimental time to experience your leadership abilities and how you can really define yourself as a professional in those situations. And I wouldn't change that experience for the world.
Yeah. So the moral of the story is if you have the opportunity to build something from the ground up, like a fraternity on a college campus, take that chance. It'll be well worth it and it'll pay dividends in the long run for sure. And I know you went on to get a master's degree in educational leadership and administration from the University of Delaware. So how did that experience shape who you are as a person?
Yeah, going back to school full time after being out for a couple years was really a big decision for me. You know, quitting my job that I was working full time to go back to a higher ed program full time, I knew was going to be a challenge, but I also knew that for me to move forward in the field of higher ed, it was absolutely going to be crucial for me to be able to do. So I found the program at University of Delaware, which so many of our friends and colleagues that we know in this field are graduates from, and dove in head first. I had an assistantship that I was working in the student centers under the director, working with student government and with sorority life. It really gave me the opportunity to apply the educational component to the work that we do. So from understanding student development theory and how that plays a role in all of the programs that we create, to just understanding how to administer educational programs in the most successful way. I really pull on that experience even now, not working directly in higher ed. I'm building learning programs for both salespeople and sales managers. And I constantly am drawing back on a lot of the content that we learned back in my higher ed program about education in general. And I think that it's serving me really well as a person. It's allowing me to ground a lot of my work in theory and practice. And I'm really excited from that decision that I made to attend University of Delaware. And I look back today and think that I don't know where I would be without having that program and having that advanced degree.
Yeah, that was a great choice. There's certainly a lot of great higher ed professionals that we both know from that program, and some amazing things happen there. I also have to be honest with you. I feel like I was very fortunate to have you on staff at the Sigma Pi headquarters back in July of 2013. I remember how excited that I was. I remember how excited everybody on the team was when you agreed to come on staff there. And you started out as a regional director, and then you kind of just took over the learning and development initiatives that we were putting forth for Sigma Pi Fraternity. And we had some amazing results there. So I guess what initiatives were you most proud of in that role with Sigma Pi?
Yeah. Well, thanks again for that opportunity, Mike. Starting the regional director program was a really awesome pillar of my professional career and really enjoyed the work that we got to do together over those years. And I think my most proud accomplishment in that time was us creating an actual role for it. I think in the past, from my understanding, it was always an add-on to members of the staff's job. Like, oh yeah, by the way, in addition to your job, you're also going to be focusing on training and development or education and development of our members and alumni and our volunteers. So through our conversations, we decided that it was really in the best interest of the fraternity to put somebody in this role full time. So that alone in and of itself, I think was a huge accomplishment of creating that role and then putting me in it to be able to spearhead some of those educational initiatives at the time. Now, I'm not really sure where many of those are currently, but I want to say thank you for, under your leadership, making that opportunity for me.
Hey, listen, it was my pleasure, and there were just amazing things that were happening at that particular time. And I look at some of the progress that was made in the regional director program, in the various accreditation that we were offering to the various chapters. And there was just so much there. There was so much information and so much data that we were collecting on all of these chapters. I feel like at that particular time, we were just so connected to all of the different chapters, and we were offering real value to the chapters themselves with people like you and the experience that you were bringing to the table. I just felt like every time I would speak to a Greek advisor on a particular campus, they would just be raving about this program because they recognized the amount of experience and dedication that you were bringing to this particular position and to the area that you were serving. And it was great for these Greek advisors because they could basically start from a point that was much elevated, where it was all about, all right, how do we get to the next level with this chapter versus starting with some of the basics. And that for them, I feel like was very beneficial. They really had a very good impression of where Sigma Pi was going. And that just made me excited about the future of the organization.
That's awesome. And it's so good to hear that. Even after all these years, it's still nice to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you've obviously been a very dedicated volunteer for NGLA. You've served on their conference staff, you were assistant executive director, and now in June of 2019, you started as the executive director of the Northeast Greek Leadership Association. That's just amazing. And I also have to tell you that NGLA is my favorite conference because of this family atmosphere that you and the other volunteers have been able to build into the culture of the conference. I haven't seen that anywhere in the country, and I think that's why I love NGLA so much. So how did the board and the staff make that culture possible?
Yeah, that's $1 million question. And if I had the actual answer to it, I could probably make a lot of money off of it, because
Yeah.
this feel that we create at NGLA is unlike any other regional conference. I feel as though I've lived in a lot of different parts of this country. I've been fortunate to travel to a lot of these different regional conferences that are hosted, and none of them really feel the same NGLA does. And I think a lot has to do with the fact, Mike, that every single one of us, from me to our conference chair to our person that does registration, we're all volunteers. We all absolutely love the work that we're doing for the fraternal movement, that we want to give our time year after year in providing an amazing experience to young men and women of the Northeast. And, you know, I think when you talk to a lot of people that travel, they will agree that the people of the Northeast are different than any other part of the country. And I think that contributes a lot to our success. I think we have real dialogue that impacts all of the students that are attending this conference, and it provides them the ability to provide substantial change on their individual campuses when they go home after experiencing that annual conference every year.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you're right about that. It just seems like the volunteers there, everybody just pitches in and everybody's happy to help. And I'll never forget, I was a vendor at NGLA years ago. And of course, I was driving from Nashville, Tennessee to NGLA, which of course is a far drive. And I was running a little bit late because of traffic. And I showed up maybe 5 minutes before all of the students were getting ready to go through this vendor exhibit hall. And I just remembered that all the volunteers just dropped everything that they were doing. They saw me carrying all kinds of gear up to my exhibit hall booth, and everybody just dropped everything and just selflessly helped me build by myself, of course. I had no other staff at that time. And they helped me to build the exhibit hall booth, and I was ready to go as soon as the first student walked in. And I just remembered that, and I go, you know, I don't think there's anywhere else, any other conference where you would see that kind of action, that kind of teamwork, that kind of camaraderie. And that's what makes NGLA so special.
Yeah, I love hearing that story because, you know, we have such a dedicated team that it makes my job very easy to lead this team, because everyone is so passionate about what we're doing. And that's a clear case example of how willing everyone on this team is to just roll their sleeves up and do what needs to get done to create the best possible experience we can.
Yeah, nobody ever asked to do it. It was just like, this is what we're doing. Nobody said anything. It was just, that's part of the culture, right? It's just, we have to help each other and make this look the best that we possibly can given the scenario. And it was my fault. I was running late, and so I admit that. But everybody just did what needed to be done, and nobody knew anything. It was just, it looked like I had been set up there for hours and was just waiting for the students to get there. Of course, that wasn't true, but I really appreciate NGLA for that. And I'm not going to forget that. That meant a lot to me. And I know this past weekend, I know you spent a lot of time with the board. So what are some of the new initiatives that you plan on rolling out at NGLA as the new executive director?
Yeah. So we're really excited to roll into this year because we're getting ready to celebrate our 20th anniversary. So NGLA was founded in 2000. So 20 years later, here we are, and I have the privilege of leading the organization into that 20th year anniversary. And one of the areas that I've really been focused on as the executive director is really leveling up our internal infrastructure. So a couple of the things that I've been very busy with, along with the help from my team, is migrating over to Google Suite. So we have now access to Gmail, to Google Drive for all of our file storage needs. We're now a 501c3. We have that nonprofit classification, which we've never had before. So it's enabling us to be able to do a lot more under that classification. We're also launching a project management tool called Asana to really help level up how we interact with our volunteers and the projects that they're working on, providing them reminders and support every step of the way to ensure that we're doing everything we need to do when it needs to be done. And I think, too, moving the conference to Baltimore. This is our first time headed down to Baltimore. We're really excited, but with anyone that's worked with the conference, they know that when you change locations, you got to change everything, because it's not just a simple, plug in this new location. It's everything is new, from the meeting space to the vendor space to the sleeping space, so we need to make sure that we're on our A game so that we can anticipate all of those needs and plan in advance so that we can ensure that everybody can get the same experience they have come to love at this NGLA, our 20th anniversary in Baltimore.
Yeah. Well, listen, there's great leadership with you and the rest of the team there. So I'm very confident that you're going to pull this off, even though you're in a brand new location in Baltimore, which is great, by the way. The seafood, the crabs in the Old Bay. I mean, there's just so much to see and do there in Baltimore. So I think it is a great location. But I'm very confident that with the leadership that's in place, it's the people that makes NGLA great. The location can move. That's fine. It's the people that make it great. And so I'm 100% sure that this is going to be a big success. So I'm really excited to check out the new hotel. It's going to be great.
One of the areas, too, that we're really focused on, Mike, and like you said, the people is what makes NGLA so great. We are investing more than we ever have in the experience to break down barriers for more students from different diverse populations to attend. So this year, I know last year we were able to raise about $9,000 in our silent auction. And those dollars go directly to creating scholarship opportunities for students and professionals to be able to experience NGLA. So we're going to launch a couple new scholarships this year to be able to break down those barriers to make the conference more accessible for students that really need this kind of education to help drive change on their local campus and in their chapters and councils and communities.
That's great. And I want to go back. I want to talk about the students for a moment, because as a longtime vendor and speaker at the conference, I'll be honest with you, I feel like I get a very, very high return on investment at NGLA. I know I feel that way. I know the rest of the speakers that came with me last year, they also felt the same way. So for some reason, the students are extremely receptive to our message in the Northeast. The students are extremely engaged. They truly want to be part of the solution. They're aware that there are problems within Greek life, but they want to be the ones to fix it. So how do you explain that, especially given some of the problems that we see portrayed in the media?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Mike, I want to thank you for your continued and deepened partnership with NGLA. It's sponsors like you that really help us make this conference possible. Last year, we set a record with raising over $56,000 in sponsorships, which truly allows us to do things like, for example, this year, we're not raising the conference registration rate because we were so successful last year in raising those sponsorship dollars that we can help reduce the cost of going to a city like Baltimore. This year, we're going to have a headliner for our keynote, which we have not yet decided, but we're putting some of those dollars towards that specifically so that we can even increase that experience for all of our attendees as well. So when it comes to the conversations that you're having and our other vendors are having, I think it's having the right people in the room. NGLA has been a very big draw. Data shows that the most common attendee is a junior in a leadership role. And I think that we're getting the right people in that space that are the change makers on their campuses, councils, and communities. By bringing those right people into the audience, we are empowering that change to take place at a more accelerated rate. Now, don't get me wrong. We love all types of different students coming to, whether they're in a position of leadership or just a role where they're kind of espousing their leadership. But what we really like to do is make sure that we have as many people in the room that are in the right roles so that they can learn everything that we teach at NGLA and bring that back to their campus to enact that change.
That's fantastic. I can't wait to be a part of it. I mean, I'm ready to go. Let's get to NGLA. Let's do this in Baltimore now. So that's awesome. And I also know that you're now a new dad to Harrison. This kid just might be the cutest kid on the planet. So if you're out there and you have this advertising campaign you're thinking about with a really, really cute kid, I'm telling you, Harrison is it. And you and Taylor, you guys make beautiful humans. What can I say? So, how is it being a new father? How does that influence your work in fraternity and sorority life?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much. Being Harrison's dad has been one of the greatest joys of my life. And, as we continue to learn more about him every day and he learns more about us, it is truly a rewarding experience. And, it really does shape the work that we do. I think when we think of fraternity men and sorority women, oftentimes, even as young professionals, we just think of them as students. But when you cross that threshold into parenthood, they're now sons and daughters. And when I think of the work that we do and the programs that we are building and the work that we get to do nationwide, it's really impacting this younger generation. And when I think back to the horrible things that you see in the media about the fraternity and sorority experience done wrong, it affects me differently now because I think that that's not just another student, that's somebody's son or daughter, and I can relate to them. And what I think now is that I realize even more now than ever that the values-based organizations that we are members of and that we are working to really elevate across the country, that work is more important now than ever. By helping young men and women understand these values both in themselves and attach a word to it, but then also affiliate with an organization that has group values that they can assimilate with. I think it is so important to help those young men and women understand what those values are, how they align with them individually, and how to lead with those values. Because those value systems, if they are stronger in our young men, and when these chances arrive for things to go wrong with a stronger value system in place, I think the decision-making process would be a lot easier if they had that stronger value system internally. So when I think of the work that we're doing, that values congruency, that values alignment is more so important now than ever. And when I think of my own parenting technique, I think about our family values and what it is that we think is important. And how can I teach that to my young son even before he's a year old? And as he grows up as an infant and a toddler and a young boy, what can I do to start teaching those values at a very young age? And I look back to this fraternity experience of mine, and I have a lot of great lessons that I can impart on him from that experience directly.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think this is going to ratchet up as Harrison gets older, as he starts getting closer and closer, high school and then college. I think, you're absolutely right. I look at the fraternity and sorority experience totally different as a parent than I did as, an undergraduate student or even as an adult without kids. Now, when I go to NGLA and I see these men and women in various organizations, could be local organizations, could be multicultural organizations, whatever organization you're in, I look at these men and women and I see my son and daughter. And that just tells me that I have to keep marching on because these are my kids. These are people that I care about. And I see the faces of my kids in all of these men and women that have joined all these organizations. And that's why I care so deeply, is that I want it to be a great experience for them. I want us to fix the problems. And I know that we can. I have more belief now, more than ever, that we can fix these problems together because I see the initiatives that these students are putting forth at NGLA and some of the other conferences around the country. I see how dedicated they are to fixing these problems. They want to be a part of the solution. And I am more confident than ever that we are going to find it. I really believe in the younger generation. I really do. I really believe in today's students. And I can't wait to see what they come up with. So I'm just kind of along for the ride. I'm going to guide as best I can, but it's the students themselves that are going to bring the solutions.
Absolutely. Couldn't
That's
agree
fantastic.
more.
Yeah. So we're well aware, obviously, of all these challenges that we see facing fraternity and sorority life all over the country, not just in the Northeast, but everywhere from Maine to California. So what can chapters do differently, in your opinion, in order to ensure that Greek life, number one, grows, and number two, remains relevant for future generations like Harrison?
Yeah. Well, I think this goes a lot back to my previous answer just now with that values alignment piece, because that's the difference between fraternity and sorority, right? You don't join the chocolate club on campus to learn about values. You do it because you're interested in chocolate, and you don't join student government to kind of align your personal values with the organization. You learn about students in government and policy creation. But in fraternities and sororities, we're creating a very unique opportunity for young men and young women at one of the most important times in their lives, at 18, 19, 20 years old, to dig deeper into understanding more about themselves, what it is that they value, and finding an organization with other like-minded individuals that claim to value the same thing. And my charge for those people in those organizations is, don't let it just be lip service. Truly understand what these values that are in your creed or in your motto, what do they mean? What do they do to impact your life on a regular basis? How can you lead with these different types of values? Because if more people in this world led with a value system versus just what they thought needed to be done, I think this place would be a much better environment for young men and women to grow in. I think allowing them that platform to, number one, recognize what the meaning is of what they're feeling, right? Because I know for a challenge for me when I was younger, I always had this feeling of a moral compass inside of me, but maybe I didn't know the right word to describe it. Joining Sigma Pi in my fraternity experience, I was able to start to relate those feelings to an actual set of values and start making decisions in my life based off of those values. When I did that, it made it very easy, almost like I was on autopilot when it came to decisions, because this is who I was on the inside. When I was encountering a situation where I had to make a decision, I would rely on that value set to get me out of it successfully and to keep myself safe and those around me safe. So I implore fraternities and sororities across the country, across the world, to really just spend time in a dialogue, talking about those personal values, talking about these organizational values. How can we align them, and how can we make actions align with those values? Like, you always want to make sure that your mouth and your feet are headed in the right direction, in the same direction. And I think values alignment is a way that you can do that.
You're 100% right. All of those issues go away if we're making decisions based on our values. And you've really crystallized, I think, with that answer, why fraternity and sorority is so important. You had an instinct within you that you knew that you wanted to do the right thing as a young adult, but it wasn't until you joined Sigma Pi did you realize, okay, here's a set of values, and this is how I'm supposed to live my life in accordance with these values and the ritual in Sigma Pi, right? And so that's just, it crystallizes why it's so important, I think, on campuses all across the country, is because what you experience, I think it does the same thing for other students. And it's an experience that's unlike anything else, like the chocolate club, like the football team, like the chess club, like even student body government. You just don't get that in any other organization, right? So I think about that often, and I think about how important that is developmentally for you and for other students around the country.
Students at that age are so influenced by peers that it is so important to have a healthy outlet and a healthy group to be able to assimilate with, but also to be able to remain an individual at the same time. And I think by creating these opportunities for young men and young women to be brought into these values-based organizations, when done right, amazing things can happen. It can save people's lives, but when done wrong, and we've seen way too many times, it can take people's lives. So learning to lead with those values, I think, is a very important lesson. And I really hope to see more organizations participating in that dialogue more openly, all the way from their executive office to their alumni to their active student chapters. We all have to be using that value set. Just because you're out of college doesn't mean that you throw those values to the wind. You have to continue on a daily basis, every day of your life, using those values to make sure that you are aligned, so that you never know who's watching, right? You're always setting an example for someone behind you. In our case, it's our children and those that we work with. But we're given a really great opportunity, and I encourage everybody to do the best that they can with it, because it's a very big responsibility.
Huge responsibility. So very well said. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. That's fantastic. So now that you've had a chance to settle in Boston, of all places, and I know obviously you're originally from the Northeast, you know, New York, New Jersey kind of guy. Now you're in Boston. So I'm curious, where should I go to eat in Boston the next time that I'm there speaking or visiting in the area?
For sure. Mike, well, when you come to Boston, my favorite place is called Yvonne's. And Yvonne's is in downtown Crossing. Now, it's a special occasion restaurant, not a place that we visit frequently, but it is kind of like a speakeasy style with really dark mahogany and marble everywhere. The service is amazing. The food is amazing. I would definitely recommend checking that out when you have something to celebrate. My favorite thing there on the menu is the Viper steak, but it's big enough to share with multiple people. So make sure you go with a group.
Wow, viper steak. See, that's something unusual. I've never heard of a viper steak. I might just go just because of the name. That sounds amazing.
You
Very
totally
cool.
should. And let me know next time you're in Boston. Maybe I'll join you.
Absolutely. That'd be a lot of fun. I'd really like that. It'd be great to catch up in person for sure. That's excellent. I know that both of us are just so busy all over the country and with our work and families and everything else. And it's just good to reconnect with old friends. And I would certainly enjoy that. Listen, Kevin, I'm so proud of the man and the father and the husband that you've become. I've enjoyed all the work that we've done together. I've always thought very, very highly of the skill sets that you bring to any organization, whether it be a volunteer organization like NGLA or a professional one such as Sigma Pi. And I've really enjoyed the time that we've gotten to know each other. I know that you're going to continue to do amazing things for NGLA. I feel like they're really fortunate to have you. And I'm just, one of your biggest supporters, man. I really appreciate the work that you've done. It's been a tremendous help to the fraternity. And I think that, you're really a role model for literally thousands of college students, whether it be Sigma Pi brothers or just NGLA attendees that are going to get the experience of their lifetime. So I just want to say thank you for everything that you've done.
Hey, Mike, that was very kind of you to say. And I feel the same way about you. It's been great knowing you for so many years and having you to look up to when I worked with you at Sigma Pi to now being partners through NGLA. You're a great role model for me. And I appreciate the work that you're doing in this space and being out there with your organization, sharing the great work that you do and your team does, because they need to hear it more. And I thank you for what you do on a regular basis. And I appreciate your friendship.
Of course, I'm committed to it. I'm not going to stop until all of these issues go away. I'm trying to make this a better place for my son, Jacob, for my daughter, Rachel, and of course, Harrison is going to be not too far behind. So thank you so much. Thank you to the audience for listening to us. Please make sure that you share this with others, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Fraternity Foodie. Bye for now.
Bye.